Welcome back. This is the Mid Morning Talk with me, your host, Miriam Mia. And yes, it's good to be back. I found this is my safe space where I feel comfortable. I engage with my listeners, my viewers, and we get inspired, educated, and empowered. And that is what my very next discussion in segment is focusing about, is empowering ourselves as well as being there as a support system. How can we empower others, especially when it comes to mental health? And October indeed is dedicated to World Mental Health. And this year's theme is mental health in an unequal world. And I'm joined by a very experienced, accomplished advocate of mental health, and that is Ms. Cassey Chambers, and she's the director of SADAG, and she unpacks the theme. And I'd like to welcome her to tell us why is it so important to have a month and to raise awareness for mental health issues. Good morning, Cassey, and welcome to Salam Media.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
So you must be very busy, especially now October, because everybody wants a piece of you, and we all want to do our share in creating awareness around mental health. I know many years ago when I was little as well, if anybody manifests with a mental health ailment or even depression, and that it was deemed to be pretending or somebody wanting extra attention, or you know what, they just need to get on with life and stop being so ungrateful for all the bounties they have. And nobody really understood that it's not because they want to act this way or behave this way or they enjoy behaving this way. There's something profoundly imbalanced in their body, whether it's chemical imbalances, it's a behavioral experience or trauma that's bring to the fore. So even though you want to soldier ahead, you have this barrier and boulder that stops you. And many times then it manifests in physically affecting you. You feel you get drained of energy. You don't want to do anything, even anything. I mean, that was pleasurable for you prior. You become disinterested, and you just have this world to immerse yourself in, experience life, and it really affects your functioning and those around you. And but the good news is, over the years, I mean, we have a fantastic field of study in the field of psychiatry, psychology, the various therapists. So for me, the silver lining and the positive of this is mental health can be treated, and with a good auxiliary support in support systems, this person can have coping mechanisms and eventually overcome their mental health, or even learn to cope with it if there's no cure. Is that the message that SADAG, as well as this Mental Health Awareness Month, wants to put out?
Absolutely. And thank you for putting that so nicely to really frame it. You know, exactly what you said. There's so much stigma and misinformation around mental illness. You know, a really interesting thing that we always say, whether it be October Mental Health Awareness Month or throughout the year, is that, you know, no one says snap out of it, it's just diabetes. But however, with mental health, people think that you must just snap out of it or think positively. And it's a whole body illness, you know, it changes the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, talk, respond. So it really does affect our whole body. And it's not something that anyone ever asks for. It's not a light switch you can switch on and off and say, well, today I want to be depressed or I want to have a panic attack. You don't wish this upon your worst enemy. And I think, you know, especially during COVID, where all of us can relate to feeling stressed or anxious or depressed, there's been so many extra stresses and triggers that have contributed to our mental health. SADAG is really just using October to create awareness around mental health and to continue this conversation. And this is why we're so grateful for, you know, platforms like yours and the audience that you have that will allow us to talk about mental health. You know, we talk about it every day and we can talk about it for days on end, is that it's such an important topic. There's still so much taboo around it. People are afraid to talk about it. They don't always know what to say or what to do or how to help someone or even how to get help, which is why we're trying to normalize having these conversations, normalize explaining what mental health is and what it isn't, and also normalizing that it's okay to get help. It's okay to talk about it, because we can't do it ourselves. No one can cure themselves from diabetes or from cancer or hypertension. You need support, you need treatment. And this is what we're trying to break down for October. But if you had to ask us, Miriam, every day should be Mental Health Awareness Day. Every month should be Mental Health Awareness Month, because it affects so many people. And like you mentioned, there's so many different triggers or causes to mental health issues, whether it be loss of a job, losing a loved one, chronic illness, accidents, stress, trauma. All of these different things really do play a part in mental health. And this is why South Africans, when we're looking at how many people it affects, 1 in 3 South Africans will or do have a mental health issue. That's a lot of us. That's at least someone within our household, within our family, within our community, our classrooms, our workplaces. So we have to normalize having more of these conversations. So thank you for the platform and allowing us to talk about this topic today. Sorry, Miriam, I can't hear you. There we go.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I had to unmute my mic. Apologies for that. So this year the theme is mental health in an unequal world. Can you just qualify that statement and explain to us why that theme and what do we mean by that statement, mental health in an unequal world?
Yes, thank you for that. So the World Federation for Mental Health put aside a theme every year for World Mental Health Day, which is the 10th of October. But the whole month of October is dedicated to Mental Health Awareness Month. And this is where we get to talk about and really unpack this topic, not just on one day, but for the whole month. When we're looking at the theme, mental health in an unequal world, that relates so much to South Africa, where we're looking at, even before COVID, we didn't have enough mental health resources. We need more hospitals. We don't have enough mental health professionals in our community settings, medication, stigma, community mental health. So for us, it's a very important, relatable topic, because it looks at what mental health is like in South Africa, where the treatment gap. So when we're looking at only 1 in 10 South Africans who have a mental health issue have access to treatment. 1 in 10. That's shocking. It needs to be so much better. People deserve to get treatment in their communities, closest to their homes, within their society. We know, and this is what SADAG deals with on a daily basis, is we get calls from around the country every single day from people who are battling to get help from their local clinic because there isn't a psychologist, or there isn't a doctor, or they don't have a mental health clinic day. The hospitals have long waiting lists, or a patient has gone to fetch their medication at their clinic and they've said, sorry, we don't have stock. Can you come back next month? So all of these different issues really put up these barriers to treatment. And this is what we're wanting to advocate during October, is to say, we need to be doing more. We need our governments to be investing more money into mental health. We need more hospitals, more community mental health services. But we're also speaking to corporates and companies to say, invest in your employees' mental health. Make sure that you're also including the mental health of your staff as part of your bottom line, as part of your program. We have to do better for mental health, because there's so many people that are affected by mental illness. It's not just mental illness doesn't just affect the individual. It affects the family. It affects the community. So we have to do so much better to close that treatment gap, to encourage more people to get help. And even looking from SADAG side is when we know that we don't have enough resources, it's difficult to access mental health care, we want to make sure that the resources that are available, people know how to access them, where to go, who to speak to. We want to make sure that we break down as many of those barriers that we can. And by doing that, we're empowering people on accessing care, encouraging them to get help, and just making sure that they get help before it's too late. You mentioned that mental health untreated can really affect your daily functioning. So that means looking after your household and your family, where you're battling to get up and battling to do things. And, mental illness affects our brain, so we're not able to concentrate or make decisions or think, differently. And I think we're looking at functionality, is that people need to look after their families. They need to be able to work. They need to be able to function day to day and have those strong connections with family and the relationships. So we have to make sure we look after mental health. And that first step is to encourage people to get help and letting them know where to go and who to speak to close that treatment gap. So that's what we're looking at as mental health in an unequal world, is that we have to do better for mental health in South Africa.
We can do better, not even have to. I know we can. Each one of us can. And that's my next question, because as you said, there are not enough available therapists, professionals to support. But the thing is, I could support somebody in my capacity, and that's what I'm going. How can I, as a person who knows somebody in my community, be it a friend, a family member, a colleague, how can I be that pillar of support, that understanding person? What can I do? How can I do my bit as a South African in my community? Because, as you say, especially in an unequal society and community, it is difficult to access this. But I feel with a strong fundamental or core support group, it makes the journey a bit easier in terms of the path you have to take. And that often assists in terms of changing their cognition, something, putting that balance right in that. It may be their kindness, that silent support. And I'm just trying to think that what can I do as an individual to support somebody who I know is now not functioning optimally due to some sort of trauma.
Absolutely. And I think that's also such an important message, because a lot of people think you can only get mental health support or help from a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And those are important, but every one of us, even if we don't have any mental health training or education, we can all do our bit to look and support a loved one who's going through these difficult times and to check in with them. So just to also mention is that when we're looking at mental health professionals, if you have depression or you're not sure if you have anxiety or PTSD, for whatever mental health issue that you're dealing with, where you can go to get treatment or support is either through your GP, your house doctor, or a psychiatrist who's able to prescribe and diagnose, so prescribing medication or diagnosing and assessing for mental illness. But you can also go to a psychologist, you can go to a social worker, you can go to a registered counselor or trauma counselor as well for any kind of mental health counseling or support. When you're looking at what can I do as a fellow South African, as a parent, as a sibling, as a child or a friend, there's so much that we can do to check in. And the first step is to just create a safe space for someone to talk and open up. So checking in with someone and saying, how are you doing today? How are you really coping today? Just changing how we check in with people really opens up a conversation. So don't be afraid to say, how are you doing? How are you coping? And really listening and saying, I know you're going through a tough time, but I just want to be here for you. I'm thinking of you. If you ever want to talk, if you ever want to have a tea, I'm here with you. And I think creating that safe space, and this is for our children, this is what we need to do for our family, our friends, our colleagues, is just do a check-in. I think what you can also do is, if you know that someone in your life is getting treatment for mental illness or having to see doctors or having to remember to take medication, do a check-in and say, if you ever need a lift to the doctor next time, I'm happy to take you. Or if you want someone to go with at your therapy or your counseling, I'm happy to take you. Or you can even just share information and say, oh, I heard today on the radio, there's this organization called SADAG. Have you heard of them? Here's the link. Do you know that SADAG has over 160 free support groups around the country? You know, sharing resources and sharing information can be your way of helping to connect. And paying it forward. I think in our difficult world at the moment, and for a lot of people who feel lonely and isolated, just showing kindness, and that's both being kind to others, being kind to yourself, can make a really huge difference for someone who feels all alone, and really going through a hard time. So all of us can do something every day to check in with someone to make sure that they're okay.
Before I let you go, I know since maybe March 2020, or maybe since April 2020, a new type of mental illness has come to the fore in terms of what we experience, an unprecedented event in the world's history that impacted on everybody's lives, and that is the COVID pandemic. Those that were COVID positive and their trauma, for those that survived. I mean, I'm a survivor of it, but it was an ordeal. And even once I recovered slowly, when I think back on what my experience was, it didn't feel like a flu. For me, a flu is you get sick, but thereafter, a flu doesn't leave you with mental trauma. You almost relieve it's over so you can get on with your life. But somehow COVID was different, because when you think back about it, you still feel afraid. I just feel that, I could have not made it, and that was the reality, because I was hospitalized. Also, I didn't realize the profound impact it had on my family, and even on my mom, who was then couldn't be there for me. I mean, I'm still her child, no matter how old I am, I'm still her baby. And COVID didn't allow for her to come there just to see me physically, to find out how, and especially for our senior parents, COVID has been very difficult for them to isolate from their family and loved ones. And many are still feeling the trauma and strain of this pandemic. I mean, I'm so pleased now things are, returning to an alternate normal, but they are, and lockdown levels have eased in it. How do we now provide support for those that are still manifesting from post-traumatic stress syndrome regarding COVID? What are some advices you can give for somebody who's experiencing it, as well as for support systems? So somebody like myself, who can now able to now physically interact with parents and senior citizens in terms of guiding them this process towards a better mental well-being.
And that's such an important topic, because it's something that we're all really living, right? We can all relate to having COVID affect our families, either ourselves or someone close to us. COVID has really disrupted how we live every day. But also when people are sick, when we want to be there and help out, we can't. So visiting hospitals, even when we lose people to COVID, we can't have our funerals the way that we used to. We can't give our condolences that way we used to. So there's so many different increased anxieties that we now have, and fears and uncertainty, and exactly what you mentioned, these levels of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. It's because these are all traumatic events. For your mom, not being able to be there, feeling so helpless and worried about her child, you yourself, and there's a lot of research and information out there that people who have been hospitalized for COVID, they have lots of cognitive impacts or side effects long after they've recovered. And there's definitely signs of PTSD from being hospitalized with COVID. So all of these different things play such a huge role. And I think, again, we really have to check in with the people that who have been hospitalized, or who have lost someone to COVID, or perhaps are dealing with the side effects of COVID, the brain fog, memory, you're more fatigued. All of these things that are very real, and we have to talk about it more and normalize it again, that it's okay, and reminding ourselves that it's okay not to be okay, but that there is help. So talking about it, reaching out for support is really important. Now that we have a little bit of our normal, we can control what our normal looks like. This is when we really have to connect. So doing things that you enjoy, filling up your cup. There's that old saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. So using this time, whether it be for yourself or loved ones or your elderly people in your lives, your parents, it's really connecting. So doing something together, spending that time together is so, so important. It's what keeps us going. It's what helps us to build resilience, and we need more of that. And I think if you're looking at yourself and maybe you haven't recovered as well, maybe you're not coping, and that's okay. but it is important to reach out to resources around you, or if you need to, reach out to SADAG, and we can also just help you. Sometimes having a connected conversation could make a huge difference in a difficult day. So calling us on our toll-free helpline 0800 70 80 90, or you can SMS us on 31393. The most important thing is we just have to look after ourselves, look after each other, connect, talk about it, and really get help to help us cope. COVID is still going to be here for a while. We don't know when that's going to end, but what we can do right now is do things that are good for us. And looking after our mental health every day is a good step in the right direction. SADAG also has lots of tips and tools of what you can do every day to look after your mental health on our website. So please do go have a look at www.sadag.org.
Thanks so much for that. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask my engineer to put up the 0800 70 80 90 details, as well as your website. Like I say, for me, I no longer stress if I don't know anything, and I don't, because I just Google it and I find the answer. And for me, knowledge is power. And then, yes, that's how I empower myself. So definitely, I think in today's world, we're so blessed with technology and our fingertips. So I think we need to embrace it and use it as a tool of empowerment. And yes, if you are not, I love what you said. It's okay not to be okay. So first of all, let's accept that, and let's use that as our mantra to say it's okay not to be okay. Thankfully, we thank Almighty and all people like yourself in SADAG and such organizations where support, assistance, and treatment is available to help you on your journey or your path. So if you hit the gravel, don't worry. With a good support team, you can be back on the freeway very, very soon. Yes, and a journey that will make you grow stronger. And who knows, you could then be a mentor and motivator for somebody else that you've picked up that is undertaking this journey as well. So you can be the guide and navigator. So please do contact your mental health practitioner. Like you say, your first port of call could be your GP. And if you somebody out there that has noticed a change in personality, behavior patterns, even somebody's hygiene ways, or somebody who loved to dress well and very immaculately dressed, and now you just see that they don't have no interest in their personal appearance or grooming, and that should be alarm bells for you to just even ask them, can I help you? Would you like a dinner? Can I prepare this? Can I do your hair for you? I'm just feeling bored. So don't just deflate and offer that support, and maybe make it about you, that they assisting you. And in that way, you can subtly assist somebody. I see you smiling and saying, I do have probably a makings. I'm learning from your training how to subtly ask somebody, because I know when you're very direct and you ask somebody, what's wrong with you and can I help you? And if you don't create that safe space, people are going to put up extra walls and extra defenses, and you're not going to have that. So thanks so much for joining me. I truly have been empowered, and I am going to remember that mantra, and also remember, but then afterwards there's a second part to that, support, treatment, and assistance. So thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully you all can get that Cassey smile once we receive that treatment. Thanks so much. Really, really enjoy it. And yes, SADAG's website is on there. Various helplines have come up as well. So please, if you feel you're not okay, then that's your route to get the treatment, support, and assessments. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck for the remainder of the month. And as you said, throughout every day should be Mental Health Awareness Month. Good afternoon, Cassey.
Thank you so much for the time, and good luck to you for the rest of the day. I appreciate your time to help us talk about mental health. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be speaking to Munima Bayat, and she is the director and founder of DARE. Let's listen. Let's learn what the acronym DARE is all about. All this after the break.